We're
We're connecting.
connecting. Till today, I didn't even know that there was video in this app.
Yeah, it's a new thing. It's hot.
Thrilling.
We're on the cutting edge of the virality. The first time I've ever been on the cutting edge of anything technical before.
Well, it makes
So
me think about when I joined Twitter and I had like this makes me think when I joined Twitter and I had it was so fun because we had like each like 100 followers and that was the
yeah,
golden age of Twitter.
they. Do you remember the list app? Were you on that with
Oh,
BJ
beta
Novak?
list app was one of the most fun times of my life.
It was beta. It was like 300 people just making lists, um, and
Heaven.
yeah, it was the best thing ever. All you did was make lists with this
I made
small
so
group.
many friends on List app. What happened to List app? That was a work of genius.
Because it was really it was genius. I don't know why it didn't work out when we're referring. If you're just joining us, BJ Novak created this had created this app that was just making the lists,
It was
and for a
heaven. This was
time
2017 because I remember Girls had just ended and I put all of my creative energy into List app.
I spent so much time on my list. It was great. It was a magical group there. So we're waiting for people to come in. So we're as we wait before we formally before I do the convocation
Great.
and officially start this. Um, when I asked you to do this, thank you very much. You threw a hand grenade back at me, and I want to resolve it. You asked me if I would write a book list for you, which is
Yes, I
the
did.
question I dream of being asked all the time. But when actually asked it, I've been paralyzed for weeks by, if you could see the list of my possible book list topics that I've made, and the fleshy. So so if we can resolve this, I have
Okay, great.
so the problem is, I feel like, given my position, I'm obliged to do a list about Hollywood books, but the thing is, I don't think that many books about Hollywood are that good, except for they're if you're in the industry, they're very informative. But there's not that many I would recommend to people outside the industry. So I have two topics
Okay, great.
uh, that I've narrowed it down to, which is sort of marginal Hollywood, on the margins, stories about people on the margins of Hollywood, or wayward wayward young people up to no good. A favorite topic of mine.
Okay,
Or long series, sort of like My Beautiful Friend. I'm a fan of these long, like, sort of 8-part book series.
so I
Yeah,
love all the topics.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
obviously I want all of those lists, but I have to say, like when as a studio executive would say, what I
Yeah.
spark to is I want that list of wayward people up to no good, young people up to no good, because I feel that many of my readers are wayward young people up to no good.
That's what I thought, and it's my it's my favorite type of people.
It's
Because
my favorite type of people. It's my favorite topic. And what excites me is that because obviously, yes, it would be, you could do a list of, here are great books about the players in Hollywood. Here, we're going to read this, and there are a couple that I tell everyone who is thinking about writing scripts to read. There's a couple I tell people to read to kind of understand the tenor of the business. But I want, like, what is Richard Rushfield doing when he's not sussing Hollywood out and putting us in our right spots. I
thank you.
want wayward people up to no young people up to no good. Is what
Good.
I want.
Yeah, because I feel like, and this is important, this will get to our discussions of the whole culture. I feel like, if you are in the cultural space, if you're not just staring at Roblox or whatever my son and the kids do, you are shamed by overachievers.
Yeah.
And to give the people who aren't overachievers the sense that this world really belongs to you.
I love
You're
that. One of my best friends recently said to me, I don't, we were there been to go to, she said, I don't want to go to this birthday party. I'm sick of being surrounded by so much exceptionalism. And it was like,
Yes,
just everyone, we knew
God
everyone at
damn
the
it,
party
yes.
would be like, I'm actually working on insert long sentence here in which a person is staking their claim on a specific area of culture. And we were like, we just want to stay home and watch Dateline, and that's okay.
Yeah,
And I had a
that's
really interesting conversation with Evan Ross Katz the other day about how people are too into. He's like, I think that just liking things that are medium in the pop, like in the median of popular culture, is fun again. And it there is so much. I mean, even when I read, just I haven't had social media on my phone in years and years and years. So I've been kind of able to ignore like people curating their lives, people curating their families. But what I kind of like about Substack, which is the only social media app that I have on my phone,
that's right.
is that it feels like it's a place for people to engage in their most marginal interests instead of showing me that they pack perfect kids' lunches before they go to a workout class.
Exactly. By the way, this I think we can formally begin this where the preamble. Now we can take our table. Uh, Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for our fantastic guest, Lena Dunham.
It's an honor and a
So,
pleasure, as
so,
I'm your fanatical reader and thrilled to be here.
I'm so thrilled. We're so thrilled to have you. You were when I thought when I dreamed this up, and I thought, I just want to speak to interesting people who have interesting things to say about these times. Your name was of course, at the top of that list, and and when I think about what we would talk about today, I always make a list of topics. But really, I want to talk to you about everything and anything and everything. There's some I want to talk about book lists. I want to talk about pigs. I want to talk about social media, um, the state of. So we got we I'm going to try and throw the agenda out the window and just see where this takes us. For all of you
Great.
joining us, um, please add your questions, your comments, your heckles.
Maybe like maybe just heckle Richard. Keep it like,
I could bring it on. I can take it. I know I'm wearing two shades of green
yeah, just
now.
tell Richard he's wearing two shades of green and leave the rest,
I
to your chats with your friends.
I didn't notice that until I turned on the camera
I
and
told him it's
saw.
very
Saw.
chic and it seems like he's
Thank you.
making a choice.
A tonal experiment. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm doing. Um, the first of all, the first question that I had is what are you up to? You've had a lot of things announced in the last couple of years. Like you have everything from a spy film to a rom com to oh, and there's Alexander Rushfield saying hello,
Hi,
Lena.
Allie. We love you.
Good to see you, Ali. Um, you've had a lot of announcement, a lot of things going on. What are you up to? And given that you have such a wide range of sort of screen and off-screen projects, how do you decide what you're going to do and what you focus on? Considering it could be anything.
Great question. So it's always funny. I always resist it when people want to announce things. I'm like, let's just drop the thing so that
Mm,
then people know that it actually exists. But given that things do get announced, it's been a really lovely few years. I started my company, Good Thing Going, with my partner Michael P. Cohen. The P is
mm,
important.
mm.
Not the other Michael
Not the
Cohen,
attorney,
not the
the former
attorney.
Trump attorney.
That's exactly
Okay.
right. But with Michael P. Cohen in 2018, and it involved a lot of sort of planting of seeds. And it feels like now, just to use a gardening metaphor, even though I don't garden, they're flowering. So we have the thing that's coming out the soonest is our show, which is called Too Much. It's a kind of it's a working title rom-com turned on its head in TV form, starring Will Sharp and Megan Stalter. That's coming to Netflix in this summer.
And
And
involves some of my favorite people. You got Richard Grant. You got Stephen Fry is involved in that.
Heaven, Richard Grant, Stephen Fry, Janixa Bravo, Emily
Well,
Ratajkowski, Michael Zegan. We have a really joyful Prasanna Pulanajara. Like, it's a really amazing group, and it's a mix of, the whole idea was it's British and American culture clashing, and so
mm,
it's a mix of some of my favorite UK performers and some of my favorite US performers. So that comes in July. We are just in prep. right now, we're going to be shooting this summer another romantic comedy, this time a film, also for Netflix in New York called Good Sex, which is starring Natalie Portman, who
I've heard of her.
you I've heard of her too. And considering she was my first favorite actress and remains my favorite actress, it's been a real dream.
She's
And then we're working on a bunch of TV projects at Netflix. We have a TV deal, first look TV deal at Netflix. So we are working on a spy project called Covers, which is about Oxford students turned undercover MI6 professionals.
well,
So
that's
I'm
it.
learning a lot about that world. I'm working with an amazing writer, Chip Johannesson, who is a brilliant screenwriter who's worked on all of my favorite from 24 to Homeland to Dexter. And so I'm getting a real
Are you
massive
reading spy novels and watching spy films and oh,
yes. So one of my
that,
favorite things about working in different genres, like we have that. We have another project that's a police procedural. We have is to I want to twist them, but first I want to really understand the form. So I rewatched everything from 24 to Homeland. I read a bajillion John Le Carre books. I watched every spy movie that crossed my path, good, bad, or other. That's the same thing I did with, I'm working on a show that's a sort of wayward UK police procedural. And so because of my passion for Helen Mirren and Prime Suspect, because a messy female police officer with a complicated feeling about her duty to her country is my favorite genre of person. So,
that is a great genre.
so and I wanted to like offer my perspective to the Prime Suspect Happy Valley line of duty canon. So I've been watching a lot of that. And then now for this movie with Natalie, what's really lovely is I'm rewatching every rom-com that
Oh,
formed me. So all
so
the Noras, all the Nancys, just all the Mike Nichols,
so
just
it, so so if you had to give your rom-com list, the three or four rom-coms on Mount Rom-Com bar, what would be up there for you?
that's thank you for
I know.
asking. I've dreamed of this question. When Harry Met Sally, I mean, there's just nothing more delightful. That's up there. A New Leaf, the Elaine May movie. Elaine
Well,
May, Walter Matthau.
that's a great that has maybe my favorite line. In when oh no, I'm sorry, that's from the other Elaine May movie. Never what the Charles Grodin one is.
Oh,
No, what,
The Heartbreak Kid.
yes, when he Sybil Shepherd asks him what to do, he says I'm a dentist, and she says professionally. That's my favorite line.
It's
Uh,
so good. It's so good. And I just read the big, chunky Elaine May book, and that was
on
also deep inspiration.
on my
Um,
shelf.
and then my other rom-coms way up on Mount Rom-Com would be How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days,
Well,
which has
yeah, yeah, great
the
film.
best opening, which is they show like New York, beautiful. It was before drone shots, like beautiful kind of crane shot of New York into a glamorous women's magazine, typing, 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 and you hear Kate Hudson's voice go, and until then, the people of Tajikistan will never know lasting peace. It's
It's,
such a crazy first line.
exactly.
And then her friend's like,
This-
Andy, it's brilliant, but it's never going to be in the magazine.
That's
Um, But I rewatched that recently, and then the first
uh,
Bridget Jones.
hard to deny. Uh,
It's
Mount
just
Mount Romcom War should be built with all that, and can't
with
wait to
all
see.
of their faces up on it,
Yeah,
and I feel like it's a great moment for rom-coms right now. Like there's a renewed enthusiasm. Probably, I feel in a way like the enthusiasm for rom-coms is commensurate to the level of kind of disaster that we're looking at around us. Like I could write a separate thesis on this, but like, the start of the Iraq War was also was also a moment where rom-coms there was one in the theater basically every weekend.
Oh,
Like
that's interesting. Oh,
I feel that the more the world descends into mayhem, like it's easy when we feel like we're in an era of relative ease to go to the movies and watch human suffering in a way that
yeah.
it isn't at other times.
Saw seems a lot more fun. Do you want to carve off your face
That's
or stay in this prison forever?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It starts to seem a little real,
Yeah.
otherwise.
We get a couple of our lunchers have asked your feelings on Nobody Wants This and Love Actually.
Oh,
Are they close to the to Mount Rushmore status, or where do they stand?
watched every minute of Nobody Wants This, couldn't have had more pleasure. Like, also, it was so brilliant, the casting, because to have Kristen Bell, who for me, Veronica Mars is on a different mountain, but it's an important one.
Yeah, yeah,
And then Adam Brody, who like ignited so much in our teenage hearts, to then bring them back together as a sort of like proto millennial couple for millennials, like the way that it played with nostalgia really got me. And then the other one that I was asked about Nobody Wants This, and then the other romantic comedy, I just lost it. I was asked it.
Love Actually.
Oh,
What
I
Rebecca?
mean, Love Actually is I'm lucky enough that I work Love Actually is it just is it's one of those things, it's like a yearly viewing occurrence. I feel like three part of what my new show is about is that three-quarters of why I moved to England is because I watched all of these romantic comedies and had this sort of like expectation of what my the soft Christmas lighting that would follow my life. Um, and it's been amazing to work with Working Title, who made so many. I mean, Love
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah,
Four Weddings and a Funeral, Bridget Jones, the list goes on, and to sort of learn from the brilliance of what they there's very specific things that Tim Bevan and Eric Fellner understand about the way people want to experience romance that have been as a person who wrote exclusively cynical love stories through my whole 20s, it's been wonderful.
those are some amazing lists of credits that Eric Filner and Tim Bevan have there. That's incredible. What 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 did for you though? We'll talk about the culture at large, but coming off of Girls, which was such an iconic show, what was the pressure like of thinking like, what do I want to do next? And you're thinking like, do I have to match this? Do I have to do something similar? Do I have to do something totally different? How how did you dive into where do I get, having created this massive thing that was such a phenomenon? How do you dive into? And you've done some great interesting things since then.
Well, thank you. Something I feel lucky about, which is probably not probably would there are a lot of people in Hollywood who are really brilliant at sort of stepping back and looking at their career in this overarching way and deciding, okay, I just made X, and so making Y is going to be the
Yeah.
most successful next move. And like, I have an almost pathological inability not to kind of follow my bliss. And so I think after Girls, I just felt that I had started so young that I felt I had skipped over certain stages of exploration and I needed
Mm,
to hurl myself at those. And so what I really did in the years right after that, besides sort of gather my thoughts and make some life changes, was to write in a lot of different genres to kind of like recommit myself to understanding how to write a screenplay in the strictest form, especially because Girls had been such a free flowing kind of not one of the gifts of Girls was that we didn't have to approach it in a formulaic way, but at the same time I felt there were things about the just things about the art of writing television and screenplays that I still wanted to absorb. And so I tried a lot of different genres. I took a lot of different screenwriting jobs. I spent a lot of time writing prose. I spent a lot of and so then I really wanted to also try sculpting another show. So that's when I went to England and did the pilot of Industry, which was something that was my first real directing job
Mm,
besides small things post Girls, because I really wanted to kind of be subsumed by someone else's world.
yeah,
And so I'm not sure that the choices I made were necessarily in response to an external pressure. They were in response to an internal pressure that I felt to really expand my tool set.
mm,
And I
that's fair.
feel, looking back, even if it wasn't perfectly choreographed or planned, that it was what I needed to now feel like I can make more. Now I feel at almost 40 that I can make more holistic choices.
I don't think you're almost 40. That's I think you're check your math there. I think that can't be right.
I'm going to
But
be 40 in a year and a half.
I, that's incorrect. I think you're wrong
If
there.
you
You need
want to make
to
if
check
you
your.
want to make people feel old, like I remember when Macaulay Culkin tweeted, do you want to feel old? I'm 40."
Well,
And I was
think if you're 40, what's that make me? Think of that.
42, 42,
I'm
42.
not 35. If you're for the
But it
so
is funny because since I was always the youngest person in the room when I first started, and
yeah.
now I am not the youngest person in the room, and sometimes I look around and realize like I'm missing slang, I'm missing references, and I'm like, okay, it's happened. It's happened.
So that actually, yeah. So that brings me to what one of the topics I had addressed that you were such a voice of a general. You're officially a millennial, I guess, right? Is that
I
that's
am, for better or worse, I am.
yeah. Um, so how does it feel having a generation below you, and how do you relate to that generation? How do you feel about those people? But
Well, I always promised myself when I was a millennial and millennials were in their kind of youthful prime, and you'd sort of hear like I was always had total awe for everyone who, like, Gen X to me was like that's what I came of age, was wanting to be like a Gen Xer, and I always the kind of like y-
a very
this
good goal. Let me tell. As a Gen
yeah,
X patriot,
you guys
thank
are
you,
like fucking cool. You got
thank
cool
you.
energy, and so
God bless you.
I felt, because that was the generation that existed between my parents and me, and that was the generation that I watched and thought like I'm gonna be a, I'm gonna be a Kim Gordon cool girl, and I'm going to, X girl. She had her clothing line X girl. I was like, I want to be an X girl. So anyway, whenever I would hear sort of Gen X people have a kind of macro complaint about millennials as a whole, I would think, I promised myself when there is a generation below me, I will not do that. Like I
Yeah.
will embrace it I won't try to be it, but I'll embrace it wholeheartedly. And I do think, I work with people who are Generation Z. I think that they are so, like, at least the people that I'm watching, they're so smart and self-aware and funny and have a sense of what they're owed and and sort of like the failures of the older generations. I love that they aren't sort of constantly like tipping their hat in respect, but that they have
Mm.
something to say. I mean, no generation is a monolith, but I have to say, like, those Gen Z kids are impressing me.
Wow, that is very generous of you to say. I was not, as you know, I was not so generous to the millennial generation.
I remember
When,
there were a lot of complaints about us, and I'm sure many of them were utterly valid. But I have to say, like, I've just the self-possession
yeah,
and awareness of, we all wondered what's going to happen to a generation of kids who are raised on social media and raised on the
yes.
internet. And I'm sure there's real psychological cost to it. But at the same time, it comes with this kind of self awareness about mental health, about what they want out of a workplace culture. I don't know. I'm impressed.
So, Abby here, our own Abby has a simple question. How do you feel about the resurgence of girls, particularly among Gen Zs on TikTok? I've seen people go so far as to say White Lotus is just 3 seasons of the Beach House episode. How do you feel that do you feel like the show is getting more of its due now with this generation?
Well, first, I will say all that if White Lotus is 3 seasons of the Beach House episode, then the Beach House episode is better than I remembered. I am such a White Lotus fan, and the recent season was my favorite yet, and I was hooked every week, and I'm still feeling very emotional about the fate of Rick Hatchett, and that's for another conversation. Um, it's been completely surprising and fascinating, I think, especially because the show felt like it was so squarely about a specific moment in time, and in many
Yeah.
ways, time felt like people didn't understand how much of it was parody. And so to then be met with this like understanding and acceptance by kids who were 7 and 8 years old when the show came out is very lovely and disarming. I mean, it was nothing that we expected. I was just, I'll still text with Allison and Zasha and Jemima, and we'll share moments and memes. Thank you, Lori. My mother knows that it's Richard Rushfield's lunch hour, and so she brought me some lunch.
What do you get? Oh, very nice.
I got a
Maybe.
yogurt parfait from Jack's wife Frida. This is not sponsored. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Mom.
And she's giving me a second thing of coffee. Yes, I am almost 40 years old. Thank you, Lori. Um, but it's it's really like special and disarming. And Allison and Jemima and Zasha and I will text, and we are like, this someone will share a meme and we're like, we don't even understand what this meme means, we don't understand why it's funny, we just know we're in it and we'll take it.
How do you feel if you had done if you had done the show with those characters a generation later, if they had been in whatever you called it after you, Zoomers or Gen Y, what would have changed about those characters? How would they be different?
Great question. I mean, there's two questions. There's one is how would the characters be different, and the other is what would be allowed to do on TV. But the in terms of the characters, so much of the show was about their lack of awareness about sexual boundaries, about their own mental health, about the way that the world works and what is and isn't appropriate to say or do. And I feel like in a world after Me Too, in a world after the summer of 2020 uprisings and the conversation that existed in America around race, the conversations that are happening around gender, that so much of the kind of confusion and ignorance that the characters, exhibited, which was a part of their story, would be would be almost like impossible for people who lived in Brooklyn and were plugged into the world to really exhibit. So, conversations around sex, conversations around their place in culture, they would have had more answers than they did. They were kind of
Hmm.
swimming in all of this ambiguity that we've since, of course, all human behavior is ambiguous, but we've since made an effort to understand in a different way. And then, it's hard to imagine the show having more blowback than the show had, because it had probably the maximum amount of blowback that a show with that number of viewers can experience. But I do wonder how
What do you think the blowback to viewership ratio was like?
it was like 800% blowback to it was like 800 times the blowback of the viewership. And so I feel like we had blowback from people who didn't even know who weren't even watching the show. They were just kind of wanting to join in a little bit of a internet party. But I do think that I wonder what would have been possible given the changes in the television landscape, given the changes in the political landscape, given the changes in both the positive and negative changes around depictions of women on screen. I wonder what we would have been able to get away with.
That's interesting, and it's interesting. The blowback, it sort of it would be kind of because I think the target you were a show about young people. It was celebrated and it was about women, which are all of which put a target on your back for that. And I think the blowback now would be stronger, but from more kind of but kind of from MAGA world. And I think sort of that we're in those in those sort of early social media days, it was kind of social media was just a platform for blowback. That was everything. That
Well,
was the
no,
entire.
it's fascinating because when sort of MAGA culture really started to emerge clearly, and I remember certain friends of mine being so shocked by the way that certain people spoke or thought. It was a surprise to them. And having been online in the early days of girls, it wasn't a surprise to me because there were those voices. They just hadn't created a larger umbrella of identification over themselves. And so they were always there, and I always knew they were thinking very differently than our audience was, and never the twain shall meet.
You know.
But there just wasn't a way to I didn't have a word for what they were.
So what was it like? I mean, if we go back to like being at the center of that, you're a very young person, and you did this amazing thing. You created a show about your generation, and but you're not running for president. You're not.
No,
You're just
no.
telling a story about the people that you know. Like, so what was it like being at the center of that? How did you deal with
Although this is a great time to let you know that I am running for president now.
that? No, you have my vote.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Um, you know, I think the thing that I was really lucky about was that we were always in the process of making more of the show, and it was such an all-encompassing process that even though I was aware to varying degrees, sometimes I was really in it online, sometimes I stepped back about some of the conversation that was happening around the show and some of the conversation that was happening around both the characters and the people behind the characters. It was I always had the show to thank you. Thank you for
Got to gain a
the
lot of
vote.
endorsements for your campaign here, by the way. So
I promise to do right by you, whatever your needs are. I promise to make every single person in the world happy. But
they,
but I think that I always had the show to lean into and to kind of sublimate all my anxieties, my fears into. And it was actually when the show ended and I was no longer in the intensity of that process that this kind of I don't want to use the term PTSD because I know it's a very specific and real thing, but truly it was like a post traumatic reaction, which was that the show was over, the conversation was to a degree over, and I was just beginning to process it. And so that was another
mm,
reason why I didn't go, okay, my follow up has to be blank. I was like, my follow up has to be figuring out who I am as an adult person
yeah,
and remembering what it is that I love about this, remembering what it is I love about doing this. And what I feel so lucky about is in the past 8 years since the show went off the air, I really have been reminded of the kind I've gone back to this kind of like childlike love of this thing that I do.
yeah.
I love you too, Fernie. I just saw Fernie and I'm saying I love you too. Um,
And you say you all talk. Any chat about a reunion show?
you know,
I
I
have to
think
ask. I have to ask the entertainment
no,
journalist
you should
question.
ask. We definitely want to just have a reunion of hanging out with each other soon, just
Mhm.
because we've all been in so many different places and doing so many different things. And I think that, and I was lucky enough that I worked with a few girls folks, Andrew Rannells, Rita Wilson on Too Much, and that was a real joy. But that being said, also, by the way, Deborah, you said something about Brazil. I'm obsessed with going to Brazil, and my father was there recently and said, "We're going back
Mm.
because my father, who does not keep tabs on girls fans, said, there's girls fans in Brazil. We need to go back." And I was like, well, I would go without girls fans, but thank you. Um, so we haven't had a conversation about a reunion only because I think we always said when the show ended, like if we were gonna go back, it would have to be at such a different phase in their lives. We're like, let's check in when they're 60. Let's check in when they're not at Sex in the City age. They've taken even another leap. Like part of the goal of the show was always to kind of like lean into what was unexpected. And so we want to be unexpected if we come together again.
No. I always get very upset, and I felt like this with girl. I always get very upset when shows end. I feel like if it's a good show, it should run for 1,000 seasons. Like why shouldn't any show have to end?
I I don't think I've ever cried harder, literally, I'm alarmed to say, than during the finale of 6 Feet Under. And it was because it was so beautiful, but it was also because I was like, these people have kept me company for such a long time. This family is my family. I can't handle it. And I find shows ending very challenging as well. I find seasons ending
Yeah.
very challenging. I feel bereft. The end of when Happy Valley ended, I was bereft. Like I felt as though, Catherine Cahill, my friend, was
Mm.
now, I was glad she was walking off to her relatively happy ending and that Tommy Lee Royce was gone. But sorry, spoiler, but I need those people they
But yeah,
are
it
a
become it
safe
becomes
place.
life, and they take
Yeah.
you through life. And then life doesn't just end for everybody. I for
Thank
me
God we
for me
still have Grey's Anatomy. Oh my God, Amelia Root just joined. I just have to say, Amelia Root is my beloved friend and sister, and she just joined. Hi, Amelia.
Thanks for joining us, Amelia. For me, it was the ending of Mash, which you had really complicated emotions, like you're sort of like, no, the war is over, and you're like,
You're like,
they can't
good
they
for
can't hang
them.
out, they can't hang out. They'll never have martinis in the tent, and it produced very complicated emotions that cheer me
Wow.
up to this day. To this
Yeah,
day,
wow. I've heard
um,
that MASH is worth, I don't think a lot of people are doing MASH rewatches these days. I could be wrong, but I've heard it's really worth it.
I the when the death of sorry to spoil the death of Colonel Blake is the most stunning moment in the history of television that
Okay,
will
I'm going
will
in.
never, um,
Oh, guys, we still have Grey's Anatomy, and that means something to me.
yeah.
We still have the sweet strains of Meredith's voice over shots of Seattle Grays.
This time has gone so fast. We actually have to head towards a landing here.
Okay,
But
you take us home, Rushfield.
well, I want to ask your advice towards what the advice you'd give in these crazy times towards your characters growing up now and getting through it. Like, how are you getting through all this? How are you as an artist, as a creator, as a member, in Hollywood is going through its own trauma and everything.
Well,
What keeps you going now?
I think what's so kind of challenging about this moment is to look around and see so much pain on so many fronts, whether it's people, I mean, on the since we're in the Inkler, seeing how many of my friends who I have worked alongside in Hollywood and who I love are who have had, booming lives. I think it's important for people who are just starting out to know that everyone is feeling it. Everyone's feeling the changes. So if things feel hopeless, people that I know who have been employed and working for their entire careers are feeling the compression and the challenges. And it can also feel like there's not a market. So many people who got into television and what was sort of considered like the peak of peak TV feel as though there's not a market for anymore for the kinds of stories that they arrived to tell. And then at the same time, I'm also looking around, I have a trans sibling. I'm looking at the politics around that. I have friends who live in all kinds of complex families, friends who are immigrants, friends and also I live between the United Kingdom and the United States and feeling the challenges on both sides. And I think the thing that this is going to sound so hippie-ish, and I'm sorry, just blame it on the time that I did spend in California, but remembering to stay connected and in community, and that as much as we love Substack, as much as we love Instagram, as much as we love, you know, our news channel, that that is not community. Like community is your neighbor who is needs somebody to pick up their groceries. Community is your friend checking in on a friend who is specifically feeling the, checking in on a trans friend or checking in on a friend who comes from an immigrant family. Like community is staying in conversation with other people and in a dialogue with people who around you so that we can all work work towards a work towards it seems so impossible. Right now it feels very futile to think about sort of I remember like 2016 I was so full of vim and vigor and revolt
Mm.
energy, and there's moments that it can all feel very futile. But to listen to the people around you and love them and ask what they need and have them ask what you need and rise up together. Like I spent a day earlier this month at the Trans Day of Visibility rally in DC, and it was, I was thinking to myself, I have a 7-hour drive there, it's a 5-hour drive back, I have to be somewhere the next morning. I am so fucking happy that I went, because just to
Mm.
be around people in the flesh who are all l- wanting the same thing, which is acceptance and freedom, and to feel joy in the presence of other people was the most hope inducing thing in the world.
That is such a good that is so smart and profound, and it really the internet it becomes a machine to kind of breed hopelessness and nourish hopelessness in ourselves and being around other people in person and even having these conversations real
This
people
fills
talking.
me up instead of things that like the other day I was telling my father how I'd had such a wonderful day because I'd taken a walk with my pigs and my neighbor, and
We didn't
then
get to talk about pigs. I had so many pig
oh,
questions.
we can do a whole other pig chat. But I'd
Um,
taken a walk with my pigs and my neighbor, then I had written, then I had gone to the local we live in a small town in Connecticut when I'm in the US, and I'd gone to the local market and had a long conversation, and then I'd had a hour and a half Zoom with my brother, and instead of spending the entire day in an endless to-do list, and my hope levels rose by
mm,
3,000%.
that's fantastic. Final question that we ask everybody. Um, if you're looking back at young Lena, but
Yes.
today, young Lena lives today,
Young Lena
and
is young. How old is she?
uh, when you started creative work and started perfect sort of entered the industry. Uh,
23. I'm
20.
23.
So what is your advice to her right now?
I would say to her, um, you're allowed to say no. Like being a woman creator isn't a trend. Your identity is not a trend. It's
Mm,
not a zero sum game. I know it. And that doesn't mean I know a lot of us aren't in the position to say no to a paying opportunity, but you're allowed to say no to a note. You're allowed to say no to a dinner. You're allowed to say no to a relationship. Like, because you don't have to be afraid that everything is going to dry up if you advocate for yourself.
mm.
And that doesn't mean being a brat or being difficult. Like I thought that you were either difficult or you lay down and took it. And there is a space between those things. And that's something I especially say to people who might feel like, okay, I'm here in this space, but it's fleeting because people are always only going to be interested in women or queer people or people of color for a second. And I say, like, you're allowed to plant your flag, like you're here to stay.
That is so wise and so smart. And it's been such a pleasure having you here.
Thank you for
Um,
having
I,
lunch with
I,
me.
I'm not saying I've enjoyed it immediately. Will you come back and we'll talk all only pigs next time?
Yes, and
Just
next time, and my
just
pigs really love to stick their nose up to the camera on the phone, so
oh boy, they would love.
we could do like 20 minutes of just chomping sounds, kind of a pig ASMR.
Tell Victor that he wasn't cut out. He wasn't shunned. That he was very
Thank
much
you.
part of
Thank
today's
you.
chat, and we will and next time he will be the star of it.
Change the
So
world. And
uh,
I'm sending love to everyone. Thank you for joining us. It was really fun. And thank you.
and Wayward Youth reading list coming your way. So
Thank you, King. The minute you write it, it's going out to the people. They want it.
coming very soon. Thanks so much, Lena. Take care.
Bye guys.